have been doing a lot of jumping this week, so find a wall. Let's go. Heels down, toes up. Exaggerate your stance a little bit. And press. Then hips forward. Go further in, really. Try to get that heel up against the wall. Keep going. Bend your knee. Keep your chest up. All right, good stuff. Frog stretch. 4-point stance. Actually starting a bear crawl position here. And then we're gonna try to rotate those toes. No, let's see. Rotating your hip actually, but you're bringing your toes outward. So your inner ankle is facing the ground. Open up your knees slowly. For me, it's very slowly. This stretch is brutal for me. But try to line up your knees to your ankles. And then start pressing into the floor with your hands and pressing your hips back. If you don't feel a stretch in your hip flexors, maybe move your knees out a little bit.
I just like hold it for that many minutes. It's painful.
Wait, you did a yoga for 7 minutes whole?
No, like this move. Yeah, I just hold it for like 7 more minutes.
That's why.
Very appropriate, 7 minutes of heaven.
Yeah.
Because it's not really heaven. Yeah. So now, if you want, you can drop down to your elbows. And then continue to press those knees, press those hips back. Keep your rib cage up. Maybe try to keep your gaze up a little bit so your upper back is not involved in the movement. You can just keep all that stretch into your hips. And I would be, personally, I would be dynamic about this one a little bit. Kind of move forward, rock the hips forward, and then press back. Get to that point, like maybe a 7, 8 stretch level. 10 being, holy shit, my hips are gonna fall off, it's too much. So you wanna find like a 7 or 8. And then keep those hips moving though. Instead of holding in that one position, which could be good at times, but also not good at times if you hold for too long. So press those hips forward, press the pelvis into the floor, squeeze the glutes maybe, open up the hip flexors, inner thigh. They work together, those muscles. So when you squeeze your glutes, those hip flexors and adductors are also working in a different way. Then come back, press back, maybe you can go back a little bit further. Maybe you can open up your knees a little bit further. Don't forget to breathe. Keep the oxygen flowing. And chances are, if you find that 7 or 8 and you're in it, feels good, and you take a deep breath, it may ease up a little bit. Just kind of let it go. Next up, maybe come up to your hands, and maybe do a cat-cow. While those knees are out, those hips are opened up. Now press your hips all the way back into that nice 7 or 8 stretch level position. Press your hands into the floor. Now try to do a cat-cow without the hips. Just use those upper back muscles and shoulder area. All right, walk your ankles in, slowly start bringing your hips back in. And then what do we call this really? Child's pose. Let's push our hips back.
Yeah.
Reach our hands forward and get those lats stretched up a little bit. Same thing, let your head hang heavy. Take a few deep breaths, exhale, let it out. Walk your hands to the left. Bring your right hand on top of your left hand. Press your hips back into your heels. Press your fingertips into the floor. Inhale. Exhale, open up that right side body. Walk your hands back to the center. Slowly walk to the right. Bring your left hand on top of your right. Press your hips back to your heels. Press your fingertips into the floor. Big inhale. Exhale, left side body.
Did you become a certified yoga instructor?
What happened?
Yoga in the morning.
Walk your hands back to center. Chill out for a second. Big inhale, then come back to center. Baroga! That was not on the board. That was just a frog that I felt needed to do a little bit more with that. Are you ready to warm up now?
Yeah.
That was a cool little charger up. Warm up's gonna be every 2 minutes on the minute, 4 rounds, 3 exercises. Got that so far? First up, plank, shoulder, knee tap. Whew. Simple stuff, right? It does take some time, it does take some hand-eye coordination, and obviously your core. Do 6 circles through. All right, folks at home, pullover is your next exercise. Squeeze your glutes, tuck that butt underneath. Keep those elbows close to your head. Get a good stretch at the bottom with that kettlebell or dumbbell or whatever you have. And then pull over, bringing your elbows to your sides, squeezing your shoulder blades. Key component is keeping the core nice and tight and not rounding forward. And last up, HRPU simply means hand release push-up. Here, simple stuff, squeeze your glutes, keep that trunk nice and tight, because we know by now that your core is involved mostly with a push-up, yes? Perfect, all right. Pinch your shoulder blades back, hands up the floor, press into the floor, nice strong push-up. All right, can't do that, fine, drop down to your knees, you can still squeeze your glutes and work on that full range push-up. We're doing anywhere from 6 to 9 with that. I say that because of timing. So try 9 the first round, and if it's too much, drop down to 6. All right, guys, your exercise A. First up is a body row. So you can do a suspension training body weight row if you have a suspension trainer like a TRX. If not, you can do a high plank position body weight row or a renegade row. Good neutral position here. Squeeze the glutes, keep that trunk nice and tight. And then keep that chest nice and proud. Try to keep your hips square with the floor. Try to avoid rotating those hips. The wider you make your base, the wider you make your stance, the easier it's going to be. As you start bringing your feet in closer, it's going to become more difficult because you're decreasing the base of support that your core has to work around. If you have a lighter set of weights and you want to advance this exercise, you want an option, we're going to do a row, rotation, and you can do a press. Still trying to keep everything stacked from the butt to ground up. So wrist, elbow, shoulder, shoulder, elbow, wrist. Straight line here, hips are stacked, back down, rinse and repeat on the other side. Row, rotate, press, back down. And do 12. So 6 each side, wall ball set up. Butterfly position, that's why we did that frog stretch a little earlier. Feet together, knees out. Big exhale on the way up. Catch up here, try to keep a strong posture. Even me, I feel it, I'm like grounded like this, right? Because I'm not stretched up, right? So catch it in that good strong posture. Roll back down, big exhale on the way up. Okay, simple stuff. Try to make it 2 movements and not 1 movement with that swing up and press. Box jumps. What am I concerned with when you're jumping on a box? Perfect. Why?
Impact.
Yep. Perfect. You want to protect your knees, joints, obviously hips, and lower back, all that fun stuff. So it's literally, but gravity takes over. I love box jumps, and I appreciate, and I don't want to fuck my shit up either, right? So here. Well, it's control. It's not easy, but it's learning body, space, and the control on the way down. You're kind of absorbing yourself into that squat position. Before gravity takes over and brings you down, you have control over your space. You know what I mean? So again, if that's too challenging, but you guys should be doing box jumps here. Okay, here is an alternative. Folks at home, could be step ups. Next up, narrow stance squats. Simply means you're going to put a little bit more Obviously, put the feet closer together, and it's gonna be a little more emphasis on your quads. A couple different ways. You can hold the 2 dumbbells here, right? You see my squats is gonna be a little bit lower, higher. I'm not having that space to go into a nice low squat. So it's definitely gonna be restricting your movement a little bit, or your range of motion, but it's definitely the same rules apply. Keep the good strong posture, keep your heels flat, and do your squats. Doing 12 of those. Transverse bridge. Back row position here, take your time with it, and then square your hips up. I always say square your hips up because, think about this, you're looking at structure and how your body is made, right? This is supported. My hands are under my shoulders, knees are under my hips. It's a good base of support. It's like a building. Now if I'm here and I start pressing up, my toes are facing that way, my hips are out, it's just not structurally best for me to do that. So now I'm in that good stacked position. Now I can get full range of motion and get more out of the exercise without risking that injury. Make sense? 90 seconds worth of whatever you want to do to keep that heart rate up. Sorry, one more thing. After we get done, or after you guys get done with stringing all those letters together, you have an option to either keep your heart rate up and go back down and start with a bigger set and start working E+D+C+B, or work your way back up from the bottom starting with E, climbing back up.
What's the difference in impact?
So the heart, see my little high-tech graph right there?
Yeah.
That's a heart, that's your heart rate. The arrow is going up, and you're climbing, you're compounding these exercises, you're working for longer, and then you get to the top, and now you're here, you've completed everything. Now either you stay here and do E+D+B, keep the heart rate up, and then start chopping letters off, and your heart rate's gonna come back down. So it's gonna be like up, and then down. Or, heart rate comes up, heart rate comes right back down after you get to the top because you're starting from E again, and you're climbing back up. So it's interval versus, steady state cardio basically.
Okay. Interval like versus endurance.
They're both endurance because you're working for 30 seconds, but your heart rate's not gonna be as high because you're starting back at 1. Does that make sense? Ultimately, you're working for 30 minutes, and us as coaches are very pleased. Let's go.